Hi, everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right, how y'all doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, doing well.
Pretty late over there on your time zone, huh?
Work never stops.
That's right on, right on.
Just
That's right.
I'm just getting started around this time.
Yeah.
Right? All right, give it a few more minutes.
Yes, of course. Professor, next class is going to be on a Tuesday. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Just to make sure. Thank
Yes, moving forward, we're gonna hold these classes on Tuesdays.
you.
I had a conflict last night, so
Yeah, don't worry. Mm.
are you all in the same cohort?
I
I believe
recognize a
so. I
few
think we're supposed
people.
to be.
Okay.
Hi, Aman. Hi, Jose.
Hi, Norma. How
Hi,
are you?
Kartik.
Norma,
How you doing? We miss you.
Alright.
I miss you guys.
I know I miss you too.
It's been like 1 week.
Hi, Corinne. I know it's been a week.
Been a week.
We're already missing each other. We were seeing each other almost daily. That's why.
Yeah, almost every week.
Yes,
Every
Corinne. Yeah.
I'm liking that because the reason why I asked if y'all all were in the same cohort was because I got a little frustrated last term, where we had a big turnout the first week, and then it kind of went down to 10 students, then it went down to 8 students, then it went down to 6 students, and I do this for you. I don't do this for myself. I know this stuff. So I just asked, yes, these are recorded. Yes, these are going to be uploaded, but I'm not a person that teaches the PowerPoints. I'm a person that likes to have conversations. I like to understand your backgrounds, and so we can teach toward that. So you're able to apply this content, right? So I just ask that if you're able. I know we have conflicting times and everything, but if you're able, please attend these sessions. I mean, yes, they're not mandatory, but it just contributes to the conversation. And those that were on the sessions every single week last term, they found it very engaging because I taught supply chain management and operations management. And although people in healthcare, people in higher education did not think that supply chain management had anything to do with it, they loved the class because operations management has everything to do with higher education, right?
That's
And
correct.
and I will say that, this decision making for managers has everything to do with what you're going to be doing for leaders. It has everything to do within your industry. Now, yes, you'll see where we're talking about statistical methods. I have created statistics classes for Georgetown University. I've created statistics classes for Texas A&M. I've created statistics classes for Rasmussen College. And my approach is, as a leader of of organizations, as a management consultant for a number of years, we as leaders don't crunch the numbers, right? And yes, you're going to have to do some calculations in Excel, but I'm not going to be, oh, that calculation is wrong. I'm going to think. No, I want you to understand the method and approaches to calculating those numbers. And I want you to be able to comprehend what those data analysts and business analysts are going to be explaining to you, as you're leading your organizations. Okay. So from my background, as I said, I was a management consultant for a number of years before I moved to higher education. I implemented ERP, enterprise resource planning applications, and I did a lot with reporting and things like that. Now, with the emergence of the current state of technology with machine learning and artificial intelligence and things like that, I've done a lot of research on artificial intelligence and machine learning. I do a lot of research on blockchain. I did 5 TED Talks on blockchain last year, so I know a little bit about blockchain. I was going to do a TED Talk on artificial intelligence, but COVID hit, so that got pushed to next year. So I do a lot of academic and professional conferences where I talk about artificial intelligence, and the foundation of artificial intelligence and machine learning is the data. It's exactly what we're learning in this class this term. So it's going to be my approach to kind of prepare you in what's coming. Not what's coming, what's here. And you're going to see a lot of you're going to hear a lot of talk about artificial intelligence. You're going to hear your organizations integrating artificial intelligence. Whenever we talk about automation and robotic process automation and business process automation, that's machine learning and artificial intelligence. We call it dumb artificial intelligence because you're doing it based on programmatic code, and the system's really not learning anything. Right. But what we're learning in this class is the foundation of it. And, you're not going to code anything, but you're going to understand the foundations of it. And that's going to be very important in that I just got off the phone with somebody an hour ago where, they're a startup and they're going to use artificial intelligence for what we call circular supply chains. For returning clothing that's out of season and things like that, and to track to see if this clothing was made through sustainable practices. Whenever you see your shirt and it says made in Vietnam, okay, was that made in a sweatshop or was that made ethically? Right. And that is huge right now in terms of in the industry. So I'm gonna bring all those topics in because it's very important. It's not only important to this class, it's not only important to operations and supply chain management, but that's the whole foundation of this program, sustainability, right? So that's one thing that I'm very passionate about. That's one thing I do a lot of research on, and it's all about sharing that knowledge. So as we're going through the syllabus, again, if you have any thoughts, just speak up, let me know. Because again, I hate talking to myself. And if you don't engage, this is going to be a very quick discussion. Every discussion is going to be very quick because I like engagement. Okay. So as we're talking about this class, as I said, we're going to look at the quantitative tools. We're going to look at the numbers, essentially. We're going to, see how the numbers are important from a corporate, and public sector perspective. So for the government, for higher education, for elementary, education and things like that. We're going to talk about a number of statistical techniques. We're going to talk about, the variables and things like that. Now, you're not going to have to memorize those variables because you don't have to memorize those variables, in the business world, right? And that's one thing I'm big on, in that the ERP systems do this for you, right? Whenever we're including these statistical methods and models within machine learning and artificial intelligence, you have those data analysts to do that for you. They went to school for computer science. They are the mathematicians, right? You don't need to be the mathematician. That's why you hire those computer science majors. So that is, and I stress that because a lot of people go into this class thinking that, thinking that, oh, I got to memorize all of these statistical models and things like that. No. Now you're going to have to understand the foundations. You're going to have to understand what they're used for. You're going to have to understand what type of statistical model is used for a particular situation. Because whenever you are running a particular report, you're going to have situations where you're going to have to use, linear regression or something like that, or multiple regression or something like that. You're going to have to know when that model is applicable to the data that you're trying to get, right? So you don't have to be an expert in it, but if you're interested in it, you could be an expert in, with the content that we have within this course. So we're going to talk about the statistical models within managerial decision making. You're going to have to, use some techniques within Microsoft Excel. Again, I always tell people, that I take you through the pain before I show you the 3 clicks to get the exact same output, right? And I think that that's very important, because if you go through the pain and you understand where to get the numbers from, when you do those 3 clicks, because you went through the Excel spreadsheet, like, that don't look right, right? So that's why you go through those Excel exercises to have an understanding of where the numbers come from. Okay. We're also going to say, okay, why is the statistical models important for a business environment? It's just like it goes back to, operations and supply chain management. Why is operations management important in a higher education environment? Why is operations management important in a community college environment? Because you do it every single day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like why is managerial decision making? Why are these models? Why are these numbers important? Because you use the numbers to make your decisions, your tactical day-to-day decisions and your long-term decisions. Right. And I'll probably say it every single class, where that the quantitative analysis, the numbers are just one piece of it. The qualitative numbers, the feedback, the what we refer to as the unstructured data, the feedback from the students, the feedback from your peers, the feedback from the faculty members are just as important. And that goes into managerial decision making. So, for example, perfect example is I did a lot with manufacturers, right? And distributors. And, customer service is huge on numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sales, number of calls per shift and things like that. And in some environments, we would have a big, huge board up that shows, how many sales that person has or how many incidents that particular customer service rep resolved. That's the quantitative numbers. But in some cases, if Jim is down at the bottom, they say, "Oh, Jim's doing awful." No, the qualitative data shows that Jim is onboarding three new employees.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why the what I refer to as a mixed methods approach is very important. Because on the surface, oh, Jim is doing terrible. No, Jim's bad. Jim is providing more value than that person at the top of the list, because he's building 3 monsters to be on top of that list. He's onboarding 3 monsters to be on top of that list. So I'm going to continue to stress that, because I stress that to leaders of organizations, because they don't get it. They're only focused on the numbers, So that's very important. That qualitative and quantitative, that mixed methods approach is very important. And that's what we're going to talk about within this class. We're going to talk about, so we talk about the qualitative and quantitative data. We're going to talk about, hypothesis testing. So we're going to make some assumptions to say, okay, before I perform this analysis, I'm assuming that this is happening, right? I want to disprove that this is happening. So we're going to talk about hypothesis testing, and then we're going to talk about how we're going to test that hypothesis using data and statistical methods, right? And we're also going to talk about, how we're going to communicate that data, how we're going to communicate those results. I'm pretty sure that you all have reviewed a number of academic journal articles and seeing a lot of numbers and say, what in the heck is I looking at?
Yeah.
Right? Because they're academics in nature and they are just using that quantitative data. They can't tell a story, you know, and that doesn't fly in business. So we're going to talk about, you know, how we're going to visualize data. There's tools that we use. I'm creating, like I said, so that data analytics class I'm creating for Cedarville University, I'm creating a class on visualizations. That's what the whole class is about. We've already went through the data analysis, right? We're doing a whole class on how we take this data that we talked about in this class and how we visualize it to tell a story. Using Tableau, using one tool, which is pretty much the industry standard. So, you know, if you've heard of Tableau, that is pretty much your data visualization tool. We're going to talk a little bit about that in this class. And then is that me? Yeah, of course it is. So we're going to also talk about, you know, the predictive analytics. So that's when we get into my favorite part. You know, we get into our predictive analytics, we get into our prescriptive analytics, you know, we get into, you know, the analytics to kind of forecast or foresee the future, right? And the perfect example that I can discuss is what we're experiencing right now. You know, so we have a heavy reliance on data, you know, decision making with the whole pandemic, where we're getting all kinds of data, but in some environments, the leaders feel that data is useless because in February, March, and April, people were just plugging in all kinds of orders to see, okay, I want to see what hits. I want to see what gets sent. Right? So we have what we refer to as artificial spikes, you know, in our forecast and things like that. You know, so I'm working with a lot of organizations. I'm working with Penn State University to create models to kind of use predictive analytics. We're using variables. We're using variables to simulate COVID-19. Because we have predictive analytics, and the industry is saying, how can we use predictive analytics for something that has not even happened, right? How can we use predictive analytics for COVID-19? It didn't exist before January, but we can take variables, and so for example, we can take SARS. And we can amplify SARS by 50% to get that amplification, to get that impact similar to COVID-19, right? We can get the number of not really the number of deaths. That's too dark. So let's just stay with SARS. So we get SARS, you know, a similar epidemic, right? And we magnify it. And then we get types of additional environmental factors like the recession, right? And we add that as a variable. And now we create a simulation, we create a model to say, okay, this is not the exact COVID model, but it's pretty darn close to it's a whole lot better than what we currently have. Because right now we have nothing. So now we're taking this data and we're creating models and we're creating those statistical techniques, right? To kind of forecast and foresee what the system is going to tell us. So that's essentially what we're going to talk about within this class. And I mean, it all comes down to data, you know, and a lot of people, I mean, I think you all get it. So let's just stop there. What's your thoughts on that? What's your thoughts on what we discussed so far in terms of data? In terms of what you know so far in terms of class? We're just getting started.
Got a quick question, actually, if I may. So you're using predictive analytics to simulate COVID-19, correct?
No, I was saying that as it stands now, we can't use predictive analytics because predictive analytics uses previous history.
Previous history.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So like I can't pull. So predictive analytics as it stands, I would be pulling SARS, right? I would be pulling like the people that were infected with SARS,
Oh, right.
the deaths from SARS, and dump it into a simulation. But COVID is much more bigger than SARS, so we can't take it as it stands now. We have to amplify it in a way. Let's say, all right, so a modified predictive analytics. Put it that way. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. I'm actually interested in seeing a model of post COVID-19. I work in the produce industry. Food service got hit really bad, and so I'm interested in seeing what it's going to turn out after COVID kind of restaurants start to open up and et cetera, and so forth. What is going to be the trend for that? I'm just curious. That's already kind of picking my brain.
But that's exactly what I want. I won't, because the thing is, the way in which I teach, I don't teach theory, I teach practice. And exactly what you're talking about, I want you to kind of keep that in the back of your mind, and I want you to chip away at that as you're progressing through the class, because that's a use case, right? That's a use case for artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
So now you have to pick out the variables. Like, what is going to impact? So I have my independent variables, right? My dependent variable is, I would say, what? An increase in sales. Are you in like produce distribution? Like,
so I work for a corporation that makes bag salads. We're actually publicly owned.
Like,
if you go to your Trader Joe's or something, we sell bag salads there at Walmart and et cetera. Costco,
okay.
Eat Smart, the kale salads. Probably.
All right, Eat Smart, you say? Okay.
Yeah.
So when I say a dependent variable, like what goal are you looking to achieve? Like increased sales? Are you looking for the number of new new stores?
My goal would be to have the appropriate supply at the appropriate time to react to the increase. So I'm thinking food service is going to come back at some point. So broccoli, kale, et cetera, all these vegetables take time to plan for. I have to put it in the ground 3 months ahead of time. So I want to have the appropriate supply to meet that demand.
And another thing is, so like I said, this time is very, very difficult. When's it going to end?
Yes, we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. May I say something, because it's very interesting, the conversation. Thank you, Jose, for sharing that, because actually what is for me, and I work for the social services, and sustainability is one of the biggest things that a lot of the companies and agencies were not ready, especially with new expenses. And when I say new expenses, like the PPE, like, a lot of more sanitizer, a lot of, mask, a lot of equipment that was not in our budgets. And now, we are cutting, or we were cutting actually to at one point, we were cutting individuals from work because these expenses were coming from nowhere, and we were having, losses. So how long is gonna take this? We don't know. And we need to continue working on sustainability, because the PPE is a requirement, and we're gonna have to think about that, because the funding sources do not pay for that.
Yeah.
So what is a smart way to do it?
So to your point, so let's just say that hypothetically, there's gonna be a lot of hypotheticals in this class. Let's just say that this thing ends in March, right? And we're not gonna get back to normalcy, but let's just say that this thing ends in March, everything opens back up. Norma, how is your organization going to adjust? Because you see a spike in PPE right now, right?
Yes.
Are they going to keep that level of PPE? It's over, right? It's over. Are we gonna drop back down? Or are we going to mitigate the risk to say, we don't know if this thing's going to come back again.
It's gonna come back.
I feel the same way. But,
Yes.
right? But as leaders, using this data, my data is going to tell me to scale down.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yeah, because the manpower is needed in order for us to survive. The manpower is needed, and we're expending right now or using the funding or some portion of the funding and buying these things that were not predictive, that were not part of our normal day expense. So if you know, like you say, if in March this thing is gone, you know, we already included in our we have to make a lot of internal changes in our budgets. We have to submit a lot of, you know, requests for budget modifications. We're gonna have to start all over again. Like, guess what? You know, we don't need that expense because in a nonprofit organization, you cannot, you better use your funding. Otherwise, the following year, they will cut it. Yeah. They will cut it for you. So if we have that expense that we don't have, that we're not gonna use, you know, we better be in track of this with data that is gonna help us to track the expenses in a monthly basis, to be aware of what are the expenses and, you know, giving ourselves enough time to look into it and say, well, I have 6 months and I'm going into 6 months of the fiscal year and I haven't spent none of the money that I said I'm gonna spend in PPE, for example. I better relocate the money for something else.
And I think too, what Professor Goldson was saying is kind of tying it to more than just what the data is.
Yes.
Like you said, at the time, it looks like, okay, you know, we're doing better, we're doing good, but you also want to prepare for the future of, if that happens again, what are you going to do? You're going to, you know, fight for that budget again, or are you going to kind of allocate, you know, part of that PPE in the event that it does come back, so you're not completely blindsided, you know, with you know, increasing your finances and things like that. So it's more than just looking at the data. You also have to look overall, you know, what are the possibilities that it comes back again? How can we have a contingency, or how can we mitigate that so that we're more prepared going forward?
And that, so we're talking about that quantitative data.
Quantitative.
So you see how that quantitative data can bite you, right? Because the quantitative data is what we're talking about. This thing can come back, right? This thing can come back. And, you know, my biggest fear is, you know, what are we going to do once the flu season hits? How are you going to know? How are you going to know when someone has COVID versus the flu? How are you going to know COVID versus the flu versus the cold?
Yes. You know, and you know, in the previous times, so in the old times, I will say that someone that was, you know, carrying the flu, they will come into work a lot of the times. Now, you know, that individual is being sent home for 14 days before they can come back to work. Right. So this is impacting us, the manpower, in providing services to the community. And that's one of the things that we are emphasizing lately a lot. How are we gonna navigate that? Because this is really putting a lot of stressors in those that stay behind, because we have several people that right now they start having symptoms of the flu, not necessarily COVID.
Right. So is it easily to tell? Are you able to easily tell whether they have flu versus COVID?
Well, you know, we're screening every single individual on a daily basis. You know, you know, our staff is just a skeleton staff. You know, just probably 25% of the staff is coming to the office, and the rest is working on rotation. But sometimes, you know, I mean, this is a humankind. A lot of the people that might be using this in favor of them, you know, and they don't want to come in. They just say, guess what? I have the colds, so stay home. Don't work. Don't come in. And unfortunately, with child abuse, with this, you know, because I work with DCFS, social services, with mental health, you know, we need to send somebody to that home to check on that family to prevent the child abuse. And as we see, you know, there are crazy things happening in a lot of those homes, you know, yep. So we have to go through a screening, even though that people even traveling right now, that's the hassle, because if you travel out of the state, they're asking you to quarantine. Some people wanted to test, but we find out that some people, if they get infected, they don't show up the symptoms or even the window the
Right.
window of infection is not activated yet until days after, and they want to come in on a Monday test and show up to work on Monday. I mean, on a Tuesday, and that's not going to be possible.
Right. And so I had a very interesting discussion. I like to get your opinions, because we have a different demographic here. We got my demographic here, and I made the statement at an undergraduate class at Penn State where, since I said taking politics out of it, I said since our president got it, do you think that those anti-maskers are going to course correct, and you think this thing is going to go down? So then, one guy from military, he's pro president. He said, well, look at it the other way. What if those anti-maskers see that, okay, the most protected man in the world got it,
And
so
he's alive and healthy.
He's like, oh, all hope is gone. You can't fix it. You can't save it. So wearing a mask is not going to save you because our president got it. So it's like, my thing is that situation going to change anything? Because the current state, it's going to happen again. We're going to get another spike.
Yeah. We're getting it already, little by little.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I mean, yes, I mean, on the surface, it looks like we're not talking about, but this is managerial decision making, because you have to make a decision as to, I'm inventory guy, right? I've stocked up my inventory, but how long do I have to keep those inventory levels high, right? Because I don't know when China's going to shut down again. I don't think China's going to shut down, because China listens. They don't have no choice but to listen. What's going to happen if the U.S. shuts back down? That's managerial decision making.
It's what they say, when you have big amounts, like when the pandemic came out, people was getting massive amount of toilet paper.
Right.
And got to the point that you went to the market, there was no toilet paper.
Right.
So as the amount, production versus, what do they call,
Supply versus demand,
Yes, demand.
And that's why I talk about those artificial spikes, because you get those artificial spikes in toilet paper, you get the artificial spikes in hand sanitizer. So like Kimberly Clark, how does Kimberly Clark know what to produce whenever they have these huge spikes? They're like, okay, what demand's real, what demand's fake? It's hard to tell. And I mean, that's one thing, that's kind of the $1 million question right now within the industry. That's kind of the $1 million question right now in terms of data. It's like, how do we filter out that data that's bogus? But even pre-COVID, we had the difficulty to clean our data, understand what data is real, understand what data is not, and now we're kind of compounding that issue. And now is an excellent time to kind of understand this, and like this whole decision making discipline, this data analyst discipline, it's booming. Organizations are asking me about data analysts and supply chain professionals daily, and I say, I don't have them. I already sent my top guys to Deloitte. 2 weeks ago, I sent my top guys to Deloitte because they're looking for them. Because now these organizations are opening back up, and now they're looking for consulting. So that it's a very lucrative industry. It's a very interesting industry. There's never a dull moment. Like I said, I had a call with a startup today. I had a call with a startup in the maritime industry on Monday. So, and they're hard pressed. They're pretty much trying anything to survive, to literally survive. And they are depending on the data. They're looking at the data to kind of understand one, what supplies they need, what products they need, and two, okay, now we know what supplies we need. Where do we get it from? right? Comes down to the data, you know? So, you know, this is an excellent, and I guess I'm biased because I always say that, you know, supply chain and operations management is the one class that you're going to use regardless of what industry you're in. Same thing with managerial decision making and this data analytics. You know, regardless of where you're always going to use data, whether you are a data analyst, whether you are a business analyst, whether you are a decision maker. You literally live and die by the data. Right. So that's the importance of this class. I know I ramble, but hey, we're having conversations and I love it. So, you know, you have the textbook. So again, for module 1, we're going to talk about, we're going to kind of go into the statistical portion. You know, within module 1, we're going to go through the nominal data and ordinal data and things like that. Within module 2, you know, we're going to go through the descriptive data, you know, and talk about sample sizes and things of that nature. In sample 3, we're going to talk about confidence intervals and hypothesis testing. So that is more of the statistical area. And then within module 4, we're going to talk about hypothesis testing. And again, with module 5, we're going to talk about regression analysis. So again, yes, it seems like it's a lot of statistics, but it's important, you know, to managerial decision making. Again, I am more of, you know, how do you use these statistical models to make decisions? So I try to stress that. So, because I hate statistics too. I hate math too, and I'm creating classes for it, right? So, because it's needed, it's required. Right. So I just want to kind of give you that level of comfort that, you know, we're in the same boat. I dislike it as much as you do, but it's needed to make managerial decisions. All right. So in terms of the grading, the quizzes are going to make up 15% of the class. The statistical analysis assignments is 38%. I tell you right now, I'm going to be a little lenient on those. Okay. Again, I just want you to understand what the method is to calculating those numbers, what the analysis is to those numbers, right? Because you have the tools in place to do this. You have the ERP systems in place to do this. You have the forecasting tools in place to do this, right? And if you have these systems within your organization, the data analysts, even if you use Excel, the data analysts have put the formulas in there for you. So all you have to do is punch the numbers in and it gives you the answer, right? So that's why that's my justification as to why I am a little lenient on that, because I know that people say, oh, this is statistics. Well, you know, like I said, I'm lenient on it. So, but you have to do the work. Now you have to do the work, but again, don't get too stressed about the statistical methods and things like that, because when people see that word statistics, they freak out. So discussions, although it's only 7%, I would say that that's probably the most valuable area of this class, because again, you're going to get different perspectives of people, you know, in terms of how you use data in the food and beverage industry, in Jose's industry. You know, I guess I'm boring. He left on me. You know, in the food and beverage industry, you know, in Norma's industry, you know, the kind of the healthcare. I know it's not healthcare, but I'm just saying, for example, you know, the healthcare industry. You know, Aman, what industry are you in? Did I say that right?
Yeah. So I work for a telepsych company.
A who?
Telepsych, so telemedicine.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I was on the other spectrum. We saw 150% increase volume.
I had another student in the MBA program where they started a telehealth company in like March.
Oh wow.
They grew to like 10 million in like
Mm-hmm.
months. In like months.
Mm-hmm.
It was nuts. You know, and you know, I had a phone call with him, you know, and he said, Dr. Jacobson, what's the next step? I said, you got to get in AI, man. Like, how
Yeah.
do I get? I was like, you got to get now. I said, that's going to be your differentiator. I said, because you're going to see these telehealth companies popping up all over the place.
It's crazy. We just saw like 5 of our competitor, like, providers that were working for us in the last 6 months go and open their own companies, and they're doing really well.
Yeah, I mean, but because it's like, I do a lot of work. I do a lot of research with Penn State. I do a lot of research with people from the Rochester Institute of Technology. These kids are kicking out algorithms like in a weekend.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
They're kicking that, like, literally. I kid you not. They're kicking them out in a weekend.
Yep.
So if a company like my student says, okay, I'm gonna bring in a top three. I'm gonna bring in the top 3 students from RIT. I'm gonna give y'all 150,000.
Right. Yeah.
That's nothing. Hey, baby,
Right.
how you doing? You want to learn something? You want to learn something? Sit down. Let me teach you something. But I would say, I mean, that's the where you going? That's the future. That's the future. And I know that, like I said, I told him, I said it's not. I said they're hard to find. I said they're hard to find, but I said if you can find, I said you can find. I said I can give you some names. I said, but you gotta come with the money.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because it's a very look, especially now whenever those people are like telehealth. Like I said, they're springing up left and right. And like I said, 150,000, 200,000 is nothing.
Nothing. It's nothing.
It's nothing. So yeah, I mean, again, always comes down to data. All it comes down to data. So Greg, what industry do you work in?
Hey, Justin. I actually work in the housing industry, which has been hit a little bit differently than
but you're booming right now.
Nonprofits. Booming, yes, in a way. Still getting hit in different manners. We unfortunately, I sound evil. A lot of it hits, with the repercussions of COVID on a lot of our consumers or tenants, and myself as a landlord, it's awkward to be, you know what I mean. So a lot of it has to boil down into evictions, and honestly ways either around it to avoid it or to honestly proceed with it. And it's touchy. It's very touchy. I work for a company. We're called so the name of it is the Irvine Company. We pretty much own a lot of housing up and down California, some in Chicago and whatnot. But they own a lot of outdoor malls and whatnot. So they're being hit hard with hotels and malls. Yeah. So it's inadvertently affecting us. So we're having to cut down staff and kind of lower our standards as a company for our products and whatnot in order to go ahead and meet ends meet, I guess. And a lot of it, kind of what Normal was saying, has been affecting our budgets, which is kind of crazy. I myself use Tableau every day. It's one of our staples, but unfortunately, Microsoft was excluded from my company last year, so now we're all Google based. So I was going to ask you if Google Sheets was a was a big issue compared to Microsoft Excel, just because of my familiarity with it.
Yeah, I'm a Google fan, but Google Sheets, no. But
it's fine, totally fine.
Yeah. So, but yeah. Because whenever I say the housing market, I'm talking about like the real estate, because the interest rates are like super low and people are buying up houses. Because like I listed my house on a Friday. I sold it on Tuesday. It's crazy. It's nuts.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great market for that right now. Yeah. Definitely.
So, it's nuts from a real estate perspective. But again, going back to the data. I mean this whole machine learning, artificial intelligence was kind of born out within that housing industry and real estate industry. Where they would run those algorithms and for giving loans, right?
Okay.
And so the housing market was one of the first places where we found bias. And then we're going to talk about this within the course. So there's bias in data. And because they would so the housing markets would put like credit worthiness, they would have like the race, they would have like gender, and that was causing a problem within the housing markets and these algorithms that were running, because they were rejecting people, based on that. They would see history and they would see Latino, they would see African American, they would reject it. And then we see
that prior to the fair housing law?
Excuse me?
Was that prior to fair housing laws?
This was like a couple years ago. Like whenever artificial intelligence like first came out, like big. I mean, AI's been out since like 1957. It was first introduced in 1957. But Netflix made it popular. Amazon made it popular, right? I mean, we use artificial intelligence every single day.
Oh yeah.
So Facebook every single day, Instagram. Whenever you scroll through Instagram and you see those advertisements, like, hell in the hell, what? It's artificial intelligence. they get.
I know the weirdest thing.
They get those advertisements.
No,
You're breaking up.
it's strange. Oh, my bad. Gotta limit it.
What was that?
I have to. I guess my internet's pretty bad. Sorry about that.
Okay. But yeah, for the housing market, that was where we identified bias, and we're gonna talk about that, because I talk about it because I do a lot of podcasts, I do a lot of conferences, and like when I bring it up, it's a touchy subject, right? Because I always say that's why you have to bring in diversity and inclusion within developing these things, right? And somebody said one time, it's like, Justin, you're super racist, dude. I'm like, no. I say look at the majority of people who are developing these applications. I said they are from Indian descent, and they have these biases. Right, the majority of the people are certain races. They don't have many blacks programming artificial intelligence applications. They don't have many Spanish people developing artificial intelligence applications. There's bias, right? So that's another thing where you have to take that. You although you may think that qualitative data is in a way safe and bulletproof, no. That data still needs to be reviewed, right?
The accuracy, depending on who collects that data.
Excuse me?
The accuracy of who collects the data and the biases and all this is, impacts the way you're collecting the data, because you're gonna focus on the way you see the world or the way you see that, the situation.
Mm-hmm.
We all experience biases one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think more than anything else is the awareness of, that what are your biases, to be closer to the accuracy, because in reality, a lot of the data is not completely accurate.
Right.
Because it all depends on the individual who collects it and the timing, the investment, the money used to collect that data. There's a lot of things that impacts.
There's
the
always
collection of data.
There's always a monetary impact to it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And like the last class, this is one of your peers, and she said that we were talking about diversity. I'll talk about diversity and inclusion almost every class. Well, let's get ready for it. and she said we're talking about that. I just did like a keynote on diversity and inclusion at a women's conference, and she said that I work for this, or if I name her company, you probably know who she is, but I work for this company, and we do some work for TikTok, and she said if you look at the algorithms on TikTok, she said that there's algorithms that filter out African American posts and put Caucasian posts on top of the African American post. She said I seen it. And she's white. She's not gonna lie about that, right? She's like, so there's bias in the tools we use every single day, It's in the data, right? I'll show you one. I'll show you one that happened to me. That happened to me, not to me, but something I was connected with. Oh, why y'all look surprised?
That's crazy though.
You didn't sign up for this, now did you? But it comes down to the data. I talk reality. I don't sugarcoat anything. We're not in the space to sugarcoat anything. That's the problem. That's why we're in the situation we're in right now as a society, right? To cover up, you know, crud. Gotta watch my language. Give me a second. So I did a podcast on diversity and inclusion about a month ago, and it pretty much set LinkedIn on fire. And then there it is. Here it is right here. So then the podcast host reposted this, right? Because I said that, you know, I was talking about, you know, the thing that happened with George Floyd and everything, and I talked about I come from North Carolina. I come from the South, right? And she says that she asked the question of, oh, do you think things are getting better? You know, and I said that, you know, things are going to get better because this has been happening for 200 years. I said they just happened to catch that one on the phone. They happened to catch that one on the phone. They happened to catch the one where the guy got shot in the back in Wisconsin. Right? And they just happen to catch these of the thousands that happen. And that's just black people. We're not talking about Hispanics. We're not talking about Italians. We're not talking about Indians. We're not talking about Chinese people. All the Chinese people that probably got, you know, messed with during the pandemic down south. Right? And so I kind of went off on a rant there, sorry. But the whole point was, so went here, let's see here. Boom. So this comes from a podcast host. LinkedIn downgraded visibility because racism appears in the image. Even tags aren't visible to applicable users. This is LinkedIn. This is one of the applications that we all feel is a safe one. Look.
That's crazy.
Are you,
look.
Are you showing something, Professor? Because I cannot see it. I'm sorry.
Can y'all see it or no?
No.
Yeah, I can see it.
You can see it. I cannot see it. I see my peers, but then you.
Here.
It's okay.
All right. I just put. Everybody sees that, right? Okay.
Yeah, I see it.
Frustrating.
What's your thoughts on that? Let's talk about it.
Frustrating. It's not
Wow.
fair.
That's not fair. Yeah, I agree.
But you know,
it influences the way we're able to perceive LinkedIn now. You know, it's the one thing that we, like you said, we thought was safe. I mean, I got my job off LinkedIn. Now I'm wondering why. You know, it's kind of like, ooh.
That's another
dirty.
point. So I have a conversation with an individual. She's vice president of a supply chain finance company, right? She's Indian. And you know, she said to me, she's like, yeah, what? She's like, yeah, I was in operations. So I hated finance. She's like, this one guy pulled me to the side and asked me if I was interested in going into supply chain finance. And I spoke to my husband. She's like, first off, my husband is not Indian, you know, and my husband said, do you just think that this is a ploy to check the box? And I said that I don't give a doggone if it's a check the box or not. I said, I'm taking it because I'm bringing my people with me. In the story. She said, maybe it was. I said, but even if it was, I say, you bring the people with you in the story. You know, and I think that's what this podcast is about. I've been hesitant to share it with some people, but I really don't care. So I'll post it in the comment because it's real. It's real. We get deep. So, but you know, you don't, you be like, that's not scholarly. That's not scholarly. There's no, it's not vulgar, but again, we're telling it like it is. You know, but it had to be said. And it comes down to the data, and this is a perfect example. This is real life data that we trust.
And that's a thing. I can't remember what that
Jillian,
documentary is on Netflix, but it was interesting to hear that these, like LinkedIn, Facebook, these are not meant for us. Like we are the customer, you know what I mean? Like our data is getting put out there, and Facebook, LinkedIn is making money off of us. They don't care about our feelings or what, you know, what gets sacrificed. At the end of the day, they're about making money. And if they feel that, you know, cultural, you know, debates and talking about racism is not going to make people want to go on LinkedIn, they're going to hide it. And I just think it's crazy that that's their business model, is money first, like not about, you know, educating people, putting these things out there for people to be able to see it. They just use our analytics and seeing what we're clicking on and doing what they can to quiet us, basically.
For monetary, for that, you put it perfectly, to quiet us. And I will say that unfortunately I sat back in the shadows, you know, for a good few months, because I said I'm not putting out there, I'm not going to risk my, you know, my academic, you know, academic tenure. And I was like, they're going to listen to me. I was like, whatever. I said, because if they say something, they about to catch some heat. They don't want that heat. Not
Same. I was very quiet for a very long time. And then I spoke, and now, you know, my husband's whole side of his family have blocked me on all social media accounts, but it is what it is, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, and I've had peers that, you know, I've made a lot of money with, right? And once that podcast came out, you know, they kind of distanced themselves. I'm like, all right, whatever. Now I see your true colors, you know?
Yep.
So, like I said, the podcast isn't bad. It's just telling the truth. And people don't want to hear the truth. That's the problem. You know? And it doesn't matter about the race. I shared this with a bunch of white people. I've shared it with 50-year-old, 55-year-old white men. And they say that had to be said. And you know what the funny thing is that I didn't know you felt that way. Well, you didn't. You never asked. You were just concerned about me making you money, lining your pockets. You know?
Exactly.
And I would say that to some people's defense, they don't know. They don't know. You know? And I think that a lot of even a lot of African American kids, they never knew it up until about 8 months ago when all this stuff went down. Because we haven't talked about it. We didn't want to talk about it, to be honest. Why do you want to talk about something like all this stuff, all this nonsense is going on to an 8-year-old? To an 8-year-old, you need to be afraid for your life when you see cops coming around. Put your hand on the dashboard when the cops come around. To an 8-year-old. Who wants to do that? That's what we got to. It's not going to stop. It's not going to stop. And I know that, you know, I'm kind of being selfish here, and I know every single person on this phone call has a story. I guarantee it. You know, but you need to share your story. You need to share your story. And you know, like I said, I sat back in the shadows, and nothing was happening. You know, all these leaders were talking. All right. I tell people I'm calm like a bomb. You know, if you heard, you know, Rage Against the Machine, I'm calm like a bomb, baby. I come in hot, right? And now people are listening. And actually, I mean, it's so. For example, the podcast host. This is the last story I'm gonna share because we're getting it's 11 o'clock my time. The podcast host sent me a text message. She said that I just got off the phone. I just got off the phone with this black girl from Sweden. She said she listened to the podcast and she said that she's been the only black girl in Sweden her whole life and has been called the brown girl her whole life. Nobody calls her by her name, calls her the brown girl her whole life. And she said that she thought she was alone. She listened to the podcast and she said that was one of the most uplifting things she's ever heard. And the podcast host is she's very strong. She's very direct like I am. She was like, that might have been the first time I've ever talked to somebody I almost cried after hearing her story. You know, and then the last text she sent, she said, changing lives, my friend, changing lives. I just shared my story. That's all I did. I just shared my story. And you don't know who you're going to impact directly or indirectly whenever you share your story. Don't be afraid to share your story, right? So I know it has nothing to do with data, but like I said, I mean, you can't trust the data, and like Jillian said, you know, the internet is all about monetary gain. But I'm not gonna stop. Might be the last time you see me teaching here. No, I'm just kidding. No, but no. CSUMB is very, very open to sustainability and inclusion. They're very supportive of that. I will give them that for sure, 100%. But yeah, we're gonna talk about data. Now if you know somebody who's had my classes before, I can talk now. So I mean, I think the first class we had in the last term we went like 2 hours. So we're not going as far. We're not going that long this time. But in terms of the class, I was, again, like I said, go through the syllabus. The biggest thing, like I said, is understand the importance of data, right? I'll tell you, I don't accept to teach classes for the sake of teaching them. It has to have meaning. I have to be passionate about what I teach. Like my PhD's in leadership. I hate teaching leadership classes. It's all theory. I can't talk practice in a leadership course like I want to. But I can talk practice in data. I can talk practice in supply chain. I can talk practice in corporate social responsibility. I lived it, right? I can show results. I can say, look up this company. That's what I did, right? Leadership, I can say, look up this company, look what I did, but I just don't like teaching leadership. So you're gonna get real stories from this class. You're gonna get passionate. Maybe you've seen that, maybe you haven't. But like I said, I like having meaningful conversations. There's a bunch of people in this class. I hope it's the same number of people. I hope you're just not attending just because it's the first class to see what is expected. I know that's going to be the case, but I mean, if we get a good turnout, if we get 10, 12 people, that's phenomenal. Because the way I teach is I introduce the topic, because everybody can read the book. I said, this week we're going to talk about this. Where a conversation goes, where it goes. I talk about my experience in using those tools. I talk about my experience in, like I said, artificial intelligence, because I'm doing a boatload of stuff on that right now. And that's what this class is all about. You know, and to Greg's point, I'm probably gonna have Greg. You need to get your internet up, because you're gonna teach a Tableau class.
I got it. I'll work on it. I will. I got you.
Professor, I have
Sorry.
a question.
Yeah.
I have a question. One of I think one of the assignments, or one of the things that we need to work on is going to be in a groups. How are we going to get those groups assigned? Are you going to assign us to those groups?
Yeah, because in Canvas I can choose random groups. I see y'all know each other.
Oh, you can apply statistics on that.
Yeah, I know y'all know
Random
each other.
numbers, the samples.
I'm splitting up. I'm breaking up the Beatles. I'm splitting
Okay.
y'all up.
Okay.
Because so for example, like at Penn State, so I went to grad school at Penn State, and like we literally had like a dream team because we had a cohort like you all, so like all of us went through the same classes together, and like the second class, they let us choose our own groups, and it was me, it was a VP from Verizon, it was a VP from Corning, and it was a sergeant from the military. And like we would have these competitions and we would blow everybody. Nobody would even come close because of we played off each other well. We had different experiences. You know, I had manufacturing experience, we had military experience, we had telecom experience, we had deep manufacturing experience, practical experience. So we had everything covered, right? So nobody even came close to us, right? But we went through the whole program together. We didn't interact with other people, you know. So we didn't interact with people from healthcare industry. We didn't interact with people from, you know, higher education industry, getting their degree in supply chain. So I think my lessons learned from that is you need to work with different groups because you never know where those conversations are going to go. As a matter of fact, one of my peers that I'm talking about, the VP from Corning, just got his doctorate from University of Florida, right? You know, so I just spoke to him like 3 weeks ago. You know, so you know this program is going to create lasting relationships, and you know I think that the interaction with as many people as possible from any industry as possible is very important, right? You know, and I want to interact with you all as much as possible as well, because like I said, I bring people with me. Like I told that startup today, I said I'm building a supply chain army, right? And I got some reserves too. I got some reserves at the undergrad level. I'm building up my army, and I got some beasts. I have some absolute beasts. So, you know, and another thing is, you know, once you're doing your discussion post, let me know what industry you're in, and let me know what your goals are, because I collect that. And just as we talked, you know, with Norma, with Greg, you know, with Jose, I talk about those industries and talk about how the content is applicable to those industries. That's how you're gonna remember it. You're not gonna see a single PowerPoint from me because I hate PowerPoints. I talk experience, I talk industry, right? So that's my spiel. That's what you expect. And you know, if most importantly, if you have any problems with like turning in assignments and things like that, all you have to do is communicate. My phone numbers in the chat. Send me a chat. I would say the easiest, I mean, you can send me an email, but the easiest way to get a hold of me is just send me a text message. So if I'm awake, I'll respond. So again, I said most important thing. I know especially in a graduate program, I know life happens. I mean, I was in a graduate program, I was in a doctoral program, and you know things, especially now, right? With COVID going on and things like that, and with kids at home, and you're trying to work, and kids are running around and things like that. I know things are nuts. So you're not going to get anything out of me. All you got to do is communicate. All right.
Thank you.
Yep. Any questions? Any comments? I did good tonight. Only 8 minutes over. That's a record. That's a record. Y'all better get off before I start ranting again.
Okay.
I have a quick question. Yeah. From your past experience, what is one thing that you would encourage all the students to maybe study more? What is that one piece of advice that you would give to students to be successful in this class?
Collaborate and communicate on the discussion boards, because I learn a lot on the discussion boards. Because like I said, I don't know every single industry, right? You know, and so for example, you know, when I spoke with the one vice president, you know, she said, you ever heard of supply chain finance? I said, yeah, I just supported a thesis last semester. So I learned supply chain finance from a student, right? So, you know, I learn something all the time. So another example. So you done messed up. Another example, you know, is that, you know, I had someone who just retired from the military, right? And you know, military logistics, if anyone served in the military logistics is totally different than civilian logistics, as they call it. You know, and he was talking about, you know, the reverse logistics programs that he was ahead of, and, you know, moving things from Afghanistan to the US and things like that. I was like, that's pretty interesting. And at the same time, I had a customer that they make these huge mining machines that literally dig the holes for the mines in Africa, like literally. So these things are massive. They cost 1.5 million for these machines, right? And when they're like hundreds of feet underground, the axle might break, right, because of the terrain. So these mining companies, they're like just printing money, right? So they'll take this axle off and just leave it in the mine in the corner, right? And they'll say, okay, here's 200,000, give me an axle, like literally, here's 200,000, give me an axle. So this company would send them an axle, but there's an axle in the mine that can be refurbished. They got 100,000 just sitting there, right? So I brought in my student. He got paid like $150 an hour to develop a reverse logistics program for this customer.
Crazy.
I learned from the discussion board.
Got it. Thank you.
You know, so you're gonna learn so much from the discussion boards, and, you know, like I said, that's very powerful, because a lot of people just go on the discussion board, they'll do their initial post, and then like they think they're slick, and they'll go in on Thursday and do their initial post, you know, at like 11 o'clock, and then do their two peer discussion posts, and they're done for the week, right? That's fine, but what are you learning, right? And that's what got me in a higher education, in that I started lecturing at Penn State. I started lecturing at Rutgers, and in those graduate programs, I said, you know, I would always ask them, I say, what's your goal? What's your end game? Why are you paying 40 grand for this degree, right? You know, and we would talk for like 20 minutes, right? But I went to Morgan State University, which is a HBCU. I went my undergrad's at HBCU, Historically Black College and University. And I went to Morgan State, and these kids were 2 weeks away from graduating in a graduate program. You know, and I said, what are you going to do with it? Crickets, you know, and that upset me. And, you know, I was very direct with them. I said, just because you're going to get this degree does not mean a job's going to land in your lap, right? You know, and I say that because to say that even if you get a 4.0 in this program, you still have to demonstrate you know what you like. You still have to demonstrate your knowledge in what you learn in this class, in this program, right? And there was an interesting post. It was like old, so I probably can't find it that quick. There was an interesting post where one of my peers, Morgan Freeman said, you know, it's not about the piece of paper, you know, it's about your character, right? You know, and it got like 1,000 responses. It was crazy, you know, where, you know, the industry saying that we don't give a crap. We don't give a crap where you went to school. We give a crap what your knowledge is. We give a crap if you're going to be a fit for our organization, right? I didn't get my terminal degree from Princeton. I didn't get my terminal degree from Harvard. But you know what? I'm running circles around those people who got their terminal degrees from Princeton and Harvard. You know, it's all in what you do with it. Perfect example. See, I told you messed up. I was working for Intel. In Folsom, California. We brought in 2 interns. One, this Spanish girl. She's from Mexico. She was from Mexico, from Sacramento State University, and it was a black guy. Race don't have anything to do with it, but I'm just saying. There's a black guy from Harvard MBA. The girl was undergrad. At the end of their program, I was going back to school. Intel offered her a job. They sent Mr. Harvard back home. Don't come back here. You know what the funny thing is? She turned them down. She's been working for Facebook for like 10 years now in the Netherlands. Doesn't matter where you go. Does not matter where you go. He let me down. He let me down too. Cause I was hitting. I was like, dude, you gotta do something, man. They're gonna send you packing, homeboy. But you know, he thought the name was gonna carry him. It didn't. You know, like I said, I just looked at her like last year. She's doing very well. You know, and you know, she was brilliant. She was brilliant. So any other questions, or is somebody scared? You're gonna be you can jump, you can drop if you want to. What other questions you have? I'm gonna be here. I'm about to grade as soon as we get off, so I'm gonna be here. I'm drinking 11
Can you talk a little bit about the group project whenever we get into groups? What that's a little bit more about?
So once we get to that particular week, we're gonna spend a good 20, 30 minutes once we get to that week. Is that good?
Yeah, that works.
All right. Because the way I do it, you will see that I am very agile. You will see that, yes, the syllabus, I always say that the syllabus is a suggestion because like, for example, I was at Texas A&M. I was teaching at Texas A&M last term. And for their capstone, they had to get into groups and create like a business plan. It was like a structured business plan. It was very generic, right? It was like cookie cutter graduate school, you know, study. But once they got in their groups, you know, I went around and said, okay, what industry are you working? What industry are you working? What industry are you working? What's your goals? What's your goals? What's your goals? And I said, what if you, so one of them created a startup. They created a international freight startup. So based that they wanted to have a freight company based out of Mexico that distributed, you know, in and out in Maquiladora, so in and out of the U.S., you know, and around the world, you know, on container ships and things like that. And then another group, like everybody. So there was 3 people in healthcare, and then there was 1 person in corporate law, right? So they wanted to start a urgent care facility in one of these guys' hometowns because he worked for like the city or something. Like it's something that he's been like trying to do for like 3 years now. So I say, this is a perfect time to do that. It's a perfect time to do a business plan for that. Right? I said, I'm all about practical application. I said, because he had one person, he had one guy, he was like a lean expert, where he pretty much opened up hospitals. That was his job, to open hospitals. So now he has somebody who opens hospitals on a larger scale, and he has to do exactly what he does daily at a smaller scale in an urgent care facility. And now this person has all the demographics, all the research of, okay, is this a good place to locate this facility? And now the person in corporate law can look at all of the requirements that's needed for that particular geographical region. And it was amazing. You know, I mean, so for example, we had like a conference call, and they said that, oh, we're going to do a 24-hour facility, but we only did like an urgent care facility where those were open from like 9 to 9. I was like, why? He's like, we did the research, and the average income was only like $26,000. So a 24-hour urgent care facility is not feasible. We won't be open for too long, right? He said because the way that Medicare works is that you only get like 40 cents on the dollar, and you got to pretty much eat the rest, right? So he said that the 24-hour urgent care facility, you're required to have a certain amount of people on staff at all times. It's like we won't be able to keep our doors open for like 6 months, right? So we have to do that, you know, that 9 to 9 type facility. So this is what these people are doing for their final project. And my goal is, I said that I don't have a minimum of how long your document is going to be. I want you to, every single one of you, I want you to take out this page, give to your boss. I want you to take out this page, give to your boss. Take this page, give to your boss. I don't want no regular document that you're never going to open again. I give you 100, and you're never going to open it again. I want you to be able to take that document and use it. That's what I do. That's what I do for all my supply chain programs. My supply chain capstone programs that I create, I say that I want you, part of your grade is to get feedback from the leaders of your organization on this deliverable you just sent me. I'm not giving you a grade until I get feedback from your organization. I'm forcing them to show their deliverable to their company. People's got promoted. People have had those things implemented within their organizations, right? I mean, yeah, I got it. Yes, and I don't have to force them, but they do it without question. I've had no kickback from that, and they love it, right? So my point is, I'm gonna try to get to know you all. I'm going to try to understand what your goals are. I'm going to try to understand what industries you work in, and then your project's going to be framed around that. That makes sense, Mark? Is that a good explanation? Is that what you're looking for?
That works.
All right. What other questions you have? Don't be afraid now. Good. All right.
Good.
All right. So, yeah, I'm going to. This was recorded. Typically, what happens is once this goes recorded, because I'm still having a problem with my CSUMB Zoom. So this is for my personal account. But once this downloads, I normally upload it on LinkedIn, and then I'm going to post the LinkedIn via an announcement, and I'll also email it. Okay. So I think LinkedIn takes like an hour for something this long. It would be like a couple hours before LinkedIn will be able to publish it. So by the time you wake up in the morning, it's only 8 o'clock there. So yeah, just give me to like 2 hours, and it should be published on LinkedIn. Or not? Why I keep saying LinkedIn, YouTube? All right.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Thank you,
Our discussion next week is going to be on Tuesday, same time.
Same time. Thank
Perfect.
you.
All right.
Bye.
See you.
Bye. Thank you.
Night, Dustin. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Great call.